Hello everyone! I'm really excited for today's video because I wanted to make a very autumnal inspired layout, and I wanted to use the two paper collections that Stampin' Up! Has recently brought out. The first one is called Gathering Together, and it's more your traditional type of fall papers with this beautiful leaf patterns, and then a couple of them have that gold foil running through it, which looks absolutely stunning. So that's the first collection. So I would say the main colors in this one are, I think I have it here on the back. So it's Basic Beige, Cajun Craze, Crushed Curry, Early Espresso, Old Olive, and that champagne color running through it. And then so some of them have a more neutral backside that you can use to combine with the more busy print. But I would say this is more your typical fall colors, and I love this like beige color that they have as well. And then the last is this very I like how they switched up the busy paper with a very muted print so you could use them together. So that's the first collection. That's really beautiful. And then the other autumn collection that they came out with is called Autumn Toile, and it has, the first time I saw this, it really reminded me of like almost wallpaper because it's like a very gorgeous print. So again, it's got a more busy pattern on one side and then a more muted pattern on the other. And you get more sheets from each print in this collection, which I do really appreciate. This is also stunning. And then you have this beautiful green paper, and then this one, and on the flip side, it's kind of just a brown gingham. So I really like that. And the photos I wanted to scrapbook today is a hike we did quite a few years back. I would say this is probably our first hike we did together as a couple. So that was back in 2020, and this was also back in Belgium. And it was a very rural, beautiful town called Voeren, and it was like you could see I wouldn't say the first signs of autumn, but it wasn't, some of the trees were bare, but most of them still had a lot of green leaves too. So I wanted to keep this layout quite green inspired, if that makes sense. I didn't want too much of the red tones because I want to make another layout that's a lot more fall inspired. And so for this layout, I actually wanted to combine the two paper packs together because I was kind of going through this, and I really loved this green paper and then this brown combined, and I was looking for like one additional paper I could combine with this, and I found it in the other paper pack, which is the Gathering Together. And in this one I loved, let me take it out, this paper. It has a very beautiful like soft print and then this gold foil running through it, and I thought that just looked so beautiful with these other papers. Doesn't that look great? So these are the three papers I'm going to be using in today's layout. So I'm just going to scooch this to the side and take two of my Versamats so we can just get started. Okay, so I grabbed my white cardstock, and I'm going to just put down my photos in terms of placement where I want everything. So I have one 4x6 photo, and then I have these three little smaller photos that I want to put underneath. Coming across like this, and then I also want a piece of paper just kind of as a banner strip underneath there. And then I have three smaller photos. They're not exactly 4x6, they're definitely smaller. I don't know if I kind of just cut these down. I think these are, two of these together was a 5x7 photo. And then this one I just kind of cut down a little bit, but they should be all approximately the same size. So yeah, they're just a half of a 5x7 photo. And I think I want them kind of coming across like this. And so I'm just going to grab the paper that I mentioned I want to use in today's layout. So I think what I want to do is I want this like green paper kind of coming across like this. So I've done a layout recently, my camping layout that I came across completely. I don't think I want to do that because I do want to incorporate some more of this other paper. And then I mentioned that I want these little photos coming across another paper strip, and I think I want to do this. So this like beautiful white paper with that gold flecks running throughout. And then this brown, I think I want to just have as a background. So just to have a little bit less of all the white. So let me just pick this up. It's kind of hard to show, but I kind of want something like this. So I'm going to have that coming across like there, have my photo, and then have this coming across like that. And then I want to do something similar, flop to the other side. But since I don't have these 3 little photos coming across, I think I just want to do a strip. So I'm thinking that for the other side, I'm just going to use whatever I have left of this cut piece. And then I'm just going to use the other sides or the other pieces of the brown and the white. So let me just cut this down so we can see already how much that leaves us with. Okay, so I've cut the green piece of paper. I honestly just put it on an angle and cut straight across. I didn't really do any measuring. So for this one, I have a larger strip for right here. I'm just gonna put that on top just so we can kind of dry fit everything. And then for the other side, I think I don't want it I don't know if I want a full border around everything. I'm still debating on that. And then I want this right here. Something like that. And then, so the flip paper or the other side was actually too big because I didn't want it coming across like halfway down the page. So I did just cut down a little strip on the end here. So that one I do think I just want to go all the way, bump it up against the end of the paper. And I want something like that. And then I mentioned, so I want a piece of the brown paper kind of coming underneath right here so that we can just have this paper resting on top and then a little bit for this as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this down so we can see for our back piece right here. Okay, so I cut down a piece of that brown paper so I can tuck it behind these photos and a bit of that green paper. So I have a little bit of a base for my photos to go on top of. So I want something like that. And then for the little pieces of photos, I did cut down a strip in that white paper with the gold foil. And I just created some ducktails at either end. At both ends, sorry, and I will just kind of have that going across right here. And I will definitely matte all my photos as well. I'm not too sure what color I'm going to choose, but I do really like how all of that looks together. Because I like the gold foil running through it and then the combination of these tones. And then for the other side, I'm going to use a bigger piece of the brown paper. So that's nice. The collection actually had a lot of extra paper this time, so I was able to cut out a bigger piece because with the horizontal cut I made, I just felt like I needed a bit more coming across the page, and I think I'm just going to do a straight line like this and then have my photos coming across something like that. And I might tuck this one under just because with this photo I kind of want more of the green paper, and there's like this building right here that doesn't really add any value, so I think I'm just going to tuck that under right there. And then to kind of bring some of that paper in on the other side, I just cut a vertical strip that I just want to add right here. And I'm not too sure, I might just actually have it fill up the full page just because the white doesn't really add any value anyways. And since it is such a neutral tone, I feel like this works. Let me scooch all that over. Something like that. I like that. Okay. I think that works. So in terms of photo mats, I am going to use a very soft brown paper I just had in my stash. This is very similar to pecan pie. So I'm going to have that underneath my main photo right here. I'm not sure what I'm going to mat these on just because they're quite small. And then I have 2 more of the brown paper or photo mats that I want to use here. And what I definitely think I will add is, you know, ink up those edges just with some pecan pie once I go ahead and attach this down. I think I'm going to do that here. And then this is wild wheat. That was an in color from last year. And I'm just going to have that for this photo right here. So I like the fact that now there's a little bit of a difference of the photo mat colors as well. I'm still gonna kind of wait for these because I'm still not too sure. I might do something similar with these three colors, so have two of the light brown or have it flip-flopped, but I'm gonna just hold off on that right now. What I do want to add is I still have some leftover like gold foil paper. This is not from, or is this from Stampin' Up? I'm not too sure where I have this from. It's either Hobby Lobby or Stampin' Up. And I just cut out some very thin strips to add to our little pieces here, so to the outsides. And I want like a super, super small piece. And I wanted to bring that in because there is some gold foil in this paper as well. And I just like how that kind of complements it. So I'm just gonna scooch that underneath. I might need to just lift everything up. Oh, nope, there we go. We can scooch that here underneath just to get that little thin little strip. And I'll do a similar thing to the other side. Just want a little tiny added spark of gold. There we go. Okay, I like how that looks. I might scooch this over or scooch this out a little bit. Okay, that looks really, really nice. I think what I'm gonna do, because I really do like this, I might just already go ahead and stick this down, so the photo mats and then our photos right here. And then I'll still probably leave these because I'm not too sure what photo mat I want to add to these. But I'll just go ahead and off camera just stick everything down, and I'll be right back to add our embellishments. Okay, so we got all our base pieces down, and I did go ahead and on these little photos do the same principle. So I have these two in crumb cake and then this in wild wheat, just to have this like mixture of the browns and that wild wheat, and then that crumb cake is very soft, but it matches the paper really well. So in terms of embellishments and title, I'm going to do a lot of like ink blending on this layout. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and ink blend up my title as well as my embellishments. For embellishments, I'm going to be using the Changing Leaves set. This is from last year, but I didn't really feel like I was able to use it that much. So it comes with dies and a stamp set. And I noticed that I still had a bunch of dies cut out from a previous project. So I'm going to be mainly focusing on this piece for the ink blending. So that works with that hybrid embossing folder that you run through, and then it creates that beautiful texture on the leaves. So it looks like this, and then you just add that embossing, that die cut, and it cuts out these three pieces. And then I'm also going to cut out the standalone dies in just another color. So I'm just going to scooch this off to the side. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys how I created my embellishments with all my ink blending. So I focused on a couple colors, Mossy Meadows, Honey Butter, Sundance, those two colors are from Close to My Heart, and then Cajun Craze, which is another Stampin' Up color. So I created a couple of different varieties. For these, I started off just creating a thin layer of Mossy Meadows, and I think for these I actually added a little bit of acorn, which is a Close to My Heart color, to the tips of the leaves. And this is kind of just playing around with it, just how you want the leaves to look. I wanted most of them to have a pretty green feel still, just because it was definitely still like transitioning, so I didn't want it to be too orangey. So here I'm just going to be applying a bit of acorn to the tips of the leaves. And something I noticed with this like technique is definitely like going back in with a green over top. I don't think I filmed it, just helps blend everything out together really nicely. And these blending brushes are also very, very soft, so it's easy to just have a really, really seamless look. So here I did just quickly pull a bit of Mossy Meadows over top. And then Cajun Craze is a pretty strong color, so I always kind of made sure I would tap off any excess, and here I did go ahead and add a little bit of that Cajun Craze to the tips of the leaves, just again because my bigger leaves that you see at the top of the screen are very green and yellow. I did want a little bit more contrast with my smaller leaves, just because we're going to be creating bigger cluster. It's nice to have different little or different shades within the cluster, so I'm going to do that to these two leaf varieties just to create a little bit more of that orange feel. And then I'm also going to create much more like yellow inspired leaves, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and add honey butter to these leaves, just completely over the full leaf. And then I'm going to go back in with a bit of the Mossy Meadow to create those very like early changing leaves, or early season changing leaves, because I like the look of the yellow with that green still lightly being there but starting to fade away, and that way you just have a lot of different shades in your clusters, because if you would have done all of the same, that could still work, but you do lose a little bit of the contrast then within your clusters. So I'm just going to start building these here on my page, so dry fitting everything, and now you will see how good it is to kind of have all those different shades throughout our different leaf patterns. That way it just helps build up our clusters and create more contrast. So like for example, this one is a lot more orange. And these are the standalone dies I showed in the beginning. I did cut them out of some gold paper just because I love the pops of that gold throughout our clusters, and I feel like that ties in really nicely with our paper that we had with that gold foil running through it. I did kind of tuck the gold pieces behind just because I didn't want them to be the focal point. I just kind of wanted little elements of these gold leaves peeking out through our little clusters. So I'm going to build a couple of different clusters around my page, a couple smaller ones and a couple bigger ones, just to kind of build up all of our different clusters and build up our page. So I'm on the right hand side, I'm just going to create two different clusters with the bigger leaves kind of as like our base. Here I was struggling a little bit to get it underneath, so off camera I did go ahead and just cut it down. So the other piece you will see me adding here in a little bit, just to have extra leaves to this little cluster. So that's that little sprig that I had cut off, and I'm just going to add that to this cluster as well to kind of build it up a little bit more. So the other thing I wanted to add to our clusters is some of this mesh band, that gold from Stampin' Up. I'm just going to add a couple of pieces to the backs of these clusters. It's really, really hard to see on camera, but in real life, it just adds that hint of a little bit of gold shining through, and it's just really, really beautiful and adds a bit more texture to our different embellishments. For a title, I'm going to have our a la mode alphabet dies, and I did go ahead and ink blend these up as well. So I have the tops of them in Cajun Craze and the bottom in honey butter. So I'm just going to spell out Autumn Walk in Voeren. Voeren was the town, and I'll show you guys in another clip how I ink blended up Voeren, because I did want kind of like that gold and green in my title as well. So for this one, it was a little bit harder because they're so delicate. These are the Alamo dies. So they're the very, very, very thin dies, and you just have to be very careful. I think you'll see it happening here a couple times on camera, how the letters see kind of moved up. So you have to be very careful when you're ink blending this. And I just wanted to do a transition similar to the leaves of like the green going into the yellow and then going into a little bit of that sundance. I just loved all of the color combinations like that. Also that way it just makes your title pop a little bit more, because initially the Autumn Walk In I had just done on some crumb cake simple cardstock, or not crumb cake, like a very soft brown I had in my stash, and adding that ink blending with the Cajun Craze and the honey butter just kind of made the whole page tie in together much more, because it just was in that same theme as our leaves, and I just feel like it makes your title pop a lot more. So the last thing I'm going to add to our little letters here is some of this like gold enamel texture from Stampin' Up. I'm just going to add that to the tops of the leaves. And again, it's really hard to appreciate on camera how beautiful this is, but it has that super beautiful shine when you move the letter with the light here. And so again, very hard to see right here, but in real life on the page, it does make a really big difference. So I'm just going to add Voeren here at the top, which was the little town that we walked through. And luckily these letters are very thin, so they fit perfectly right here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to ink blend, I did warn you guys there was a lot of ink blending on this page, is our little tags. So I did die cut these out of the crumb cake color, paper color, and these dies are the essential dies, and they have these really beautiful little rounded rectangles. So I'm going to ink blend up these edges in honey butter and then add some Sundance and some Cajun Craze. Again, I'm going to do something very similar as what I did with the title, but then with our tag. So one of them I'll have a little bit more yellow golden with a hint of that orange popping through, and then the other one will be more yellow and green. So first, when you do this kind of looks a little bit blotchy, but the ink dies down a lot, and I think it's because of the paper. It kind of soaks up that liquid at first, but you'll see when I add it to the page a little bit later on, it looks so much better, and all the colors kind of just blend together really beautifully. With Cajun Craze, you do have to be careful. This is a really, really strong color, so you have to really tap off most of it before you start adding it to your page. And I just went ahead and added it to all the corners, so that has like that beautiful like transitioning between the darker, reddy, orangey tones and then our yellow tones in the middle of the tag. So that way we can kind of have that same feel of the leaves, but going through our tag, so everything kind of ties in nicely together. And then similar to what I mentioned earlier, it always helps to bring back your original color. So I'm going to take some more of that honey butter again and then kind of go over top of that red, just so it helps blend everything really nicely together. You tend to do this with your Stampin' blends too, like you take your light color and go back over to kind of blend everything out together, and it really does make a difference to tie it out. So this next tip or trick I'm kind of showing you, I don't know if this is the easiest way, but it's how I do it. So like I wanted to really stamp this off directly to my tag. I didn't want to use shipping labels. So what I did is I just stamped it off first on some paper to see exactly where it would print. And then I basically just put my tag with some tape over top, ran it through my printer, and that way it just printed out straight on top, and I'll show it here in a little second here how it looks, and I think it just looks really nice. There's probably ways to do this easier. I don't know how. This is how I did it and it worked perfectly. Definitely make sure you have your tape down really secure on the page. That's that other tag we also made, so that's more the green and yellow tag that I'll add a little stamp to in a little bit here. And I'm just going to go ahead and adhere my journaling to the page, since I think that worked out really well, to just run it straight through the printer. The stamp that I have adhered here, because I think I just lost that footage, is I'd Hike That, which is from a older Close to My Heart stamp set, and it has all these really cute little hike sentiments, so I thought that worked perfectly on this tag. So next I'm going to use these Stampin' Up rub-ons. These are amazing. This was definitely a Jama Mommy made me do it, because she used this on a layout and it's just so beautiful. So I cut out this little line of little dots I want to just have right underneath our title. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have my head here really in the frame because it was hard to make sure it would fit. And so what you do is you just peel this off, and you do have to be careful, because what I've seen from other people on their videos is it sticks down really, really easily. So I was ever so gentle when I put this down without putting any pressure down until I was sure this is where I wanted it, because it needed to be under that little leaf. And then all I did is just with the heat of my hands, I pressed down. It looked like from other videos I had seen, you really don't need to press down a lot or use a bone folder. It was super, super easy to do. And the effect of this is stunning. Like, I think I'm honestly going to buy another set of this just to have in my stash, because I will show you guys in a minute what it looks like. But it just transferred so beautifully, and the way it reflects the light is just really, really pretty, and that way it just ties in all those gold elements beautifully. So I'll hold it up here so you guys can see how beautifully it reflects the light. Isn't that gorgeous? Like, it looks so professional. So in that same rub-on set, there's a couple of these little splatter pieces, so I just cut these out, and I'm going to add that to this little leaf cluster at the bottom, just because that's where we just have some white background paper, not really a lot going on. I was thinking of adding some ink blending, but we already have so much ink blending in our leaves, and I wanted those to be the focal point, so I just went ahead and added these little gold splatters, and they make such a difference. They really add a really kind of professional feel to your page. So again, I just peeled off the back, stuck it down a little bit under the leaf, so it's part of the cluster, and then just rubbed it down with my finger. And here in this little shot, you'll see that it actually didn't adhere down completely. So all I did is just twisted it around. I saw which ones hadn't come off, and then just reapplied them, pushed down again, and it worked. It was really easy to use. So I'm definitely really impressed with these, and it makes such an impact. See how beautifully it reflects the light? So that's stunning. I love how all the gold elements work together. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to add are some gems, and I'm going to add the streaked dots. I was debating on adding the Cajun Craze ones, but these also have gold. Even though the colors do work, I don't want to be a little bit too much with all the gold elements. So I'm just going to go with these beautiful brown dots, and I'm just going to add a couple throughout my little clusters here, and on the tags. These are quite noticeable since they're a little bit thicker, so I'm just going to add a couple. I don't think I'm going to add something everywhere, just throughout our little clusters here. There we go. A little bit here. There we go. I like how that looks. Let me bring everything up close so you guys can see. So let me bring the light up better as well. So we have our title with that gold rub-ons that we added in our ink blending. We have our clusters with our leaves that we also have added some ink blending and that gold embossing glue. And then here, I love how that reflects the light so beautifully. And then I'll pull this one up so you guys can see all our clusters in our journaling right here. And I just love how all of the ink blending really just made this whole page come to life, and all of the colors correspond with our photos. I will have the products I have used listed down below. I know the Changing Leaves set is no longer available, but I'll have another alternative in the description box if you want to check that out. I hope you guys enjoyed this autumnal inspired layout, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up. That really helps me out here on YouTube a lot. If you've been enjoying my videos, please subscribe. I try to post at least one video a week, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye everyone!